all. Hi and welcome to Drachenwald Files, the first.
It's good to be the first.
Yes.
Rushing him like a crazy guinea pig.
So we can start off with your name and possible title.
It's Viscount Joel Ben Stewart. And it still feels weird to put that Viscount bit at the start.
I know, right? I mean, I have only been a countess for a couple of years, and it's still like every time someone says Your Excellency, you're like, who?
Yeah, no, it's very weird. Yeah. This whole royal peerage thing. Kind of what I was aiming for, but still very weird.
I totally agree. So, how long have you played in the SCA?
It's coming up to technically about 12 years, 11, 12 years now.
That's a while.
But probably we played a little in the first few years and then got sort of serious around 2012. So about 8 years being seriously in and eventing on a very regular basis.
Cool. So do you have a clear persona, or?
I'm not sure I really do. I have some thoughts of background, but I'm mostly an excuse to be me. So if it's anything, it's the son of a free lady of the city of Byzantium, Constantinople, depending on the time period. Oh, hello, Rimu.
Yep. He decided to investigate.
Nope, that's
Sorry,
fair
please
enough. We might get a Jareth investigating. I'm not sure where he is. Well, actually, he's upstairs in the wash basket at the moment, so it's relaxation time. But yes, I was. If my son has a story, it was he was born to a free Jewish woman in Byzantium, to a Norman mercenary, and I've ended up falling in with a bunch of amber traders and heading up into Viking lands, and that entirely explains why I hang out with Brighthelm, at least in part because it was Richard and Geetha who were the first people to really get us interested in the SCA many years ago, and Geetha's persona was a amber trader, which explained why she had lots of friends all over the place but was still a Viking. And it's really Richard's fault I'm here. So,
have you registered your name and device?
I have, yes.
You have, great.
Yes. It took a moment or two, and
how long did it take?
I think to get everything through, there were some delays due to various bits of out of game things. But I think it took about 18 months to get everything through.
Wow, you were fast.
It might have been a bit longer, but I can't remember.
It took me 16 years.
But that was from starting the process. I got the name.
Oh, yeah.
I worked out the name fairly early on, and then sometime later. Actually, after getting my award of arms, we registered it and put it through. It took a little while to identify the ship that's on my arms in the proper heraldic terms.
Can you blason it? You don't have to. If
well,
don't, I can't.
Ramphead in ships or on a field azure, if I remember correctly. I can't remember for the what the I don't know the phrase that's one above the other, and my Laurel will probably stalk me for that. As technically, as an apprentice to a Laurel of heralding, I should probably get better at that.
Ooh, yeah, you should.
But mostly, I'm in it for the court heralding.
Am I getting you in trouble now? Should we cut this out?
Well, given its Arimala, I think technically we're always in trouble.
Ah, yeah, true.
My official title is to her is Apprentice in Evil. And that's actually what I'm studying to be a Laurelin. So there we go.
There we go.
But this includes heraldry and generally causing trouble in court, I guess.
So there we come into your why you were doing SCA and a little bit on what you're doing in the SCA. And I'm guessing the answer is heraldry for one.
I do quite a lot of stuff. I joined the SCA because I wanted to hit people with sticks.
He's needed today.
Yeah.
So please, let's continue. You started because you liked to hit people with sticks.
Yeah, I'd done gaming for many years and got through from tabletop gaming into LARPing, so costuming and weapons. Got to know Richard and had heard about the SCA back in the mid-90s when I started LARPing, and thought that sounds interesting. And Richard turned up and we got to know him, and he went, "Oh, I do this," and we went, "Cool, let's do that then." So joined it for the heavy fighting, and then, given the things I do for fun are in anything are cooking for friends and standing at the front of things and making noise, heading into cookery and heraldry and heralding in court just seemed the natural extensions.
I can see the extension, fighting to heraldry.
Yeah, cooking. I've always enjoyed making food. I've always been an enthusiast of eating food, and thus making it myself to enjoy. So I've started helping out in the kitchens and have cooked a couple of feasts.
Mm-hmm. I heard about your feasts. I heard they're very yummy.
Well, I'm glad people seem to enjoy them. So
I'm hoping to experience one within not too long.
I have a sneaking suspicion you did get one of my feasts back at your crown tourney.
Right.
When you were queen, was actually my first proper feast, if I'm getting my times correct.
Actually,
my first feast.
Now I remember. Then I did have one of your feasts.
Yes, yeah.
So, what is your first really good SCA memory? What's like if you think about your first SCA memory that was like, oh wow, this I want to continue doing this. What
I think it is actually from my first event, which was a Raglan, which was 2008 or 9. I can never remember which, but it was the Raglan where they held the final Viceroy tourney for Insulae Draconis as a crown principality for the Viceroy, who would basically oversee the change from being a crown principality to a full principality. And I remember bits of that. I remember watching the tournament and not being able to follow it because I just didn't understand fighting at that point, because I'd been maybe SCA fighting for about a month at that point. And I was seeing people like Alaric, Sir Alaric, or Duke Alaric, really, and a number of the other higher-end fighters of Insulae Draconis going at it. But I think what I really remember was fighting, as he was at the time, King Gerhard, on the bridge, because I was new and he wanted to welcome me to it. So he did give me my first SCA bruise.
Well, that's a memory.
But as a heavy fighter, I think that's a rite of passage. And having got to do it fighting the king on the bridge at Raglan might be the best possible way to do it.
I might have to cut in a picture of actually Raglan on the bridge here when I'm editing this video, because for people that has been at Raglan, it's hard to understand the epic scenery that it is, that
Yeah,
bridge, and with the castle in behind you.
there is nothing like, and I've never found anything quite as amazing as the joy that is the castle battles at Raglan. It is just such an awesome setting to be able to fight in, and so many good and interesting things we can do in that environment, and it's wonderful to have the chance to do it.
Yeah, I've only been at Raglan once. It was last summer, and I remember just, you know, when we drove up to the castle and I see the castle, and I have already been in love with the road there because I've never been to Wales. I've been to the UK, but I've never been to Wales.
Yeah.
So for me, I remember the castle, and I have been doing this for a couple of years and have had my own castle experience from Sweden before. So to impress me, it takes a lot, but it impressed me.
There's something about when you come around that, you sort of come around the corner, and you can suddenly see the castle.
Absolutely.
And I think for a lot of us here at Insulae Draconis, it is that, oh look, we're coming home. We have homes elsewhere, but it is our second home.
Yeah.
And I go out of my way every round to always make sure that I'm getting a chance to fight on that bridge. And I've done it every Raglan I've been to.
Have you get bruises from the king all the times?
What's that, sorry?
Have you get bruises from the king more than once?
More than once. I definitely have fought every king who's been at Raglan with armour. Not always on the bridge. And sometimes with briefs to make sure that I'm the last person at least once with a brief to make sure I'm the last person he fights. And then to make sure he goes and finds the queen because he's got stuff to sign. Because the dark secret of royalty in the SCA it's a considerable amount of paperwork.
Oh yeah, I know about it.
You get this huge pile of stuff you have to look after and take with you, and you get to do a lot of paperwork.
I know that. I do think that sometimes people think that all the ladies in waiting and laddies in waiting are for show, but being on a throne, it's actually you need them.
It's a job. It was great. I had a wonderful time for 9 months being the person nominally in charge and talking in front of people, but it was not. It's definitely it's definitely a piece of work. It's something, it's definitely a job.
Yes.
And changes events for you. And I think that needs to be remembered by people.
In what way did it change you?
I don't know if it changed me a lot, but it made me think about what I'm saying. I was definitely more careful with making bold and sweeping statements when I was on the throne, because I was aware that if I'm saying it, I'm saying it to the prince, and anyone who knows me will know that I have a tendency to run off of the mouth at times, and disappear into interesting realms of thought and saying things. So it did make me think about what I was saying and how people were going to think about it, which is a useful skill.
It is.
But mostly just because I have my wonderful consort, another half of Alda, who is the organised one, whereas I'm the loud, talky one, meant we could divide the work of the reign between us. So if somebody needed to say something at the front in court, it was usually going to be me. And thankfully, she handled all the paperwork because would not be my strength. And we had good people around us. and we've been involved with enough reigns, with enough friends, and seen what they're doing, that we kind of knew what we were getting into. But thankfully, I have the greatest and best of households, even if they are a bunch of villains and all disreputable.
You're talking about Brighthelm, don't you?
I might be mentioning Brighthelm, yes. So, you know, they're scum and villains, but they're the scum and villains you want on your side. And having friends who will help you do things. One of my other early SCA memories was seeing Richard and Lena win Coronet tourney, which was actually my first tournament. And I was relaxing in my bedroom after the tournament, recovering some energy, and listening to the rest of the people sleeping in that dorm room, who were all members of Brighthelm, planning everything that was going to be needed, all the little things that were going to be needed for Richard and Lena's reign, and that they needed to get sorted, and thinking, you know, I know these people will have my back because I'm part of this household.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly the whole idea seems less intimidating. And it was still a difficult, reigning was still a challenge, but it was definitely made easier by having friends who'll help.
I do agree that having people that back you up, that friends that will understand your needs and what you're good at and not, and all that, do help out with the reign.
Yeah, and I will, at least because of that, I will now make sure that if I see any royal in need of an assistance, I will go and offer it, and I'll make sure that they know to ask me, which I suppose is part of being a Viscount anyway, but it is so easy it could be so easy for people to founder and have issues if they don't think to ask for help, which is a thing that I don't think an awful lot of us, I know in the SA, are very bad at asking for help when we need it. I know I am.
Yeah, I know a bunch of people that are. I know that I am getting better at it, but I do think that kind of is sort of a common trait.
Yes, yeah, it's a common trait, and I know a lot of people who find it easier to offer help than to ask for it.
That is my view of Drachenwald as a whole. Regardless of where we come, people are very willing to offer help.
Yes,
even if we are bad at asking for it.
It's. I think sometimes oh no, I need help with this means I'm not good enough. I think that's why I think of it. But so I know I don't like it, and I could be terrible for it. But I have lots of people who will just turn around and go, "Okay, what do you need me to do?" When I cook feasts, there are people who have been known to go, have you eaten yet? To which the answer is almost inevitably no. Who will then make sure that I eat?
Yeah, I recognize that in a lot of feasts. Cooks for feast. It's like, have you eaten? Have you been taking a cup of water? No.
Nope. I'm doing things.
Make sure they sit down and eat and have a cup of water.
Yeah.
If you're gonna cook, because this is things that I think that some people don't know how to do, and like what does it mean to be a feastocrat, if we use that word, a cook for the feast? Like, how many hours do you spend both planning and also cooking for a feast? Let's say a feast for 70, 80 people. That should be a normal standard, like something.
Planning 10 to 20 hours work, planning it, including probably a couple of tests on dishes, which I should probably do more of, and then cooking it. probably close to the same again. So yeah, it's a good solid week's, working week's worth of work. And the planning can tend to be spread out over a little while. But then you factor in the shopping. It's usually sort of a case of when I've done it, we've arrived on site, emptied the car, taken the car straight to where we're buying the food from. Because we previously didn't have a car that was big enough to bring the food down with us in it. And then pretty much as soon as breakfast is cleared up,
yeah, you start cooking.
I start cooking, and then I'm cooking through till the start of feast, with maybe the odd sort of quick break outside to go and have a look at things. So yeah, and I've done a couple of, I've done at least one feast, which I wasn't the head cook for, but was running one of the two kitchens we had, and cooked, I think when I counted it, 2/3 of the dishes in that kitchen over medieval style wood stoves, which was challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm pretty sure I spent 15 minutes out of the kitchen before the feast, and then got chased out to just go and sit, and was spent the evening just benched out in a chair somewhere.
For me, that sounds like a normal amount of time, being a feastocrat myself a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I think like 10 to 20 hours planning, around 20 hours cooking, depending.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of work. It explains why we are so enormously grateful when people come in and do the dishes for us.
Oh yes, yeah. No, it's the first rule should be that whoever cooked the feast shouldn't wash up.
Anyhow, we're gonna leave the feast for a little bit. I was going to ask you your favorite piece of garb. What is your favorite piece of garb and why?
Oh, I'm not sure. I quite like this tunic and the trousers that go with it, because it's sort of, the joke is that as someone who helps Trenchard out in the kitchen, she labels all of the people she's taught feast stuff, or teaches anything to, as her minions. So I have blue and yellow garb and a blue pinny to go, and a blue apron to go with it, that makes it look much more like the minion appropriate dungarees, and gets wonderful double takes because I'm a large guy wandering around in a frilly Tudor pinny, which is slang for apron, and gets glorious double takes from people from time to time because it does look a little like a dress. So I quite like that. And I also actually really like my first set of garb, which is fairly simple. It's a white under tunic and a blue over tunic in a sort of, I think, 12th century Norman style. But it looks nice. It's simple. It's comfortable. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. And it looks good to me. And I'm pretty sure I was usually what I was wearing while I was sat on the throne as prince. Because it looks respectable and is comfortable. And it's nice. I'm not a huge... I like good garb, but I could sometimes do with a bit more garb. But
so, the last question, because we have been talking for about 30 minutes now.
Yeah.
With and without kitties. I'm still missing Jarrett.
Yeah, no, he's snoozing.
So you have to tell him I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's,
Yeah. Well, anyhow, so the last question I have for you is, what keeps you going during these times when we can't have big events? What do you do for keeping up the SCA? Or are you doing anything? Or are you just waiting?
I haven't been doing a lot of SCA bits. I've been thinking about SCA things. in being a Viscount, I like to think I've been involved in helping the Prince. I've been socialising with SCA people, running role-playing games online, that sort of thing. And I've been finally getting on and doing the Pell work that Duke Elfin has been telling me I need to do to get better as a fighter for the last many years. In that I've ended up doing a thing called the 100-Day Pell Challenge, which is hit a Pell 100 times every day for 100 days in a row.
Oh yeah, that one.
Pretty much as lockdown occurred and I had issues with being employed, I decided I needed something to give me some structure to my life, and started doing that. So I've done one run through, and I'm now approaching halfway on a second run through of it, and that has helped me focus on it. I'd like to think it's going to make me a better fighter.
I'm sure it
but
will.
I've been putting in little bits of work because I've got that sort of time and the energy towards it, and have been spending not as much time online doing SCA things as I could with other people.
Well, online SCA isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a little bit why I ask, because I think that we are all facing a difficult year in one way or another.
Oh, yes.
But I think we are handling the SCA part different depending on
Yeah.
who you are as a person and what you normally do in SCA.
There's a lot of things I'm seeing that I think we need to remember and we need to do more of in future. I think the idea of making events accessible to people even if they can't get to the event, I think is important. And there are discussions going on about royalty, tournaments, that sort of thing, whether we can do them. And I think we need to remember that not everyone can get to tournaments, but it's good for people to be able to witness big events and things going on. And I hope we remember those lessons going forward. I'd like to see, where it's possible, courts and tournaments being webcast.
Yeah.
Because that means everyone gets to be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people doing classes. Yeah, I'd like to see it being a case of, we can't all get to the same place. There's not an event on this weekend, but some people are throwing together a bunch of stuff online. And not being in the same place doesn't stop us doing what we love. So I'm not doing a lot of it, but it really sort of makes me realize how much easier it is and that the technology is there for us to do a lot more things.
Yeah, I mean, here I am sitting talking to you. I'm in Sweden and you're in England.
Yes, yeah.
No, wait, you're not living in England. You're living...
No, I'm in England.
You're in England. Yes, you're in England. I was like, are you in Wales? No, you're not in Wales.
No, Lancashire. No, we'd like to be in Scotland, but only because that might have a chance of being saner than England.
Yep.
At the moment. But let us not go there.
No, let's not go there.
Strange rabbit hole to go down.
No.
But yeah, I think particularly for Drachenwald, one of those constant things you hear is people in Sweden or people in Insulae Draconis, or people in Nordmark or people in Insulae Draconis going, who is this person? Who's getting this? I've never heard of them. I've never seen what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, particularly from the fighting point of view, because that actually is something that you can do and see stuff from filming.
Yeah.
And arts and sciences as well. There are ways we can publicize those on the web so that it doesn't just have to be you're only aware of the people you can get to events with. That's where we need to be, and and particularly, I think Drachenwald, the impression I get more than any other kingdom, possibly Lockhart has a similar thing, being as it's Australia and New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
We're so geographically spread out. And while in sort of terms of the American kingdoms, actually we're really quite small, even from point to point distance.
Yeah.
Actually, getting from that's driving a couple of thousand, 1,000 miles for an event isn't considered much in the States.
No.
People will do that, and it might be that straight line from here to Sweden, but it takes multiple, it takes an inordinate amount of time to travel that distance across Drachenwald.
Yeah.
And a lot of money.
Yeah, because it's not just
there's
one
a whole
country.
bunch of people who can't do stuff.
No.
And can't get seen.
Mm.
And I think that's the thing we need to keep up doing, and there are lessons we're learning from this, and we need to take those away with us.
I totally agree. Because we can't forget that we actually have, Drachenwald involves South Africa.
Exactly, yeah.
You don't drive from South Africa up to Insulae Draconis.
No.
We're soon done here, I think. But yes, we were talking about how different it is with having a kingdom in one country.
Yes.
And having a kingdom in I don't know how many countries. Drachenwald. It's a lot. We have South Africa,
and we always have little bits more as well. So
yeah, there's all the way from South Africa. Then we have the whole Europe, and I think we have. I don't know if we have any active groups there right now, but we do sometimes have groups in Israel.
Israel, yes, and technically, from peering over the shoulder of Richie, what is the Night Marshal, technically any of the American services in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Technically fall under us as well. Not that they really have a lot of stuff, but there has been the odd. I've seen emails from American service people asking if they're okay to do stuff on bases.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe the answer is generally yes, as long as you're using the right equipment, please.
And I think that is the difference. But this is actually something I'm going to talk about people that has lived in different kingdoms in other interviews, because I haven't. I have only lived in Drachenwald and in Nordmark. And I'm guessing you have only lived in Insulae Draconis.
Only in Draconis, yes, yeah.
Because I do think it's the difference between driving within a state at the USA, or maybe crossing a state line, than having to first go via ferry or under a tunnel to France, and then you have to go into Belgium or Germany.
Yes, yeah. And I think there's some big difference. One of the things that, if the other, it's not just, I think because of the geography of Drachenwald, is we're very much a collection of small different realms. There is a different culture within, slightly different culture than Insulae Draconis, the Nordmark, and Knight's Crossing and Arnhem. They're all they're almost all little kingdoms in and of themselves. And I sort of guess the dream is that we eventually become a collection of European kingdoms, maybe. But I kind of hope that we declare ourselves the first Roman Empire of the SCA or something, because that diversity is a strength, and it's a great thing about it. But it's definitely, you sort of hear things about how events go in different parts of the kingdom, and I think we're much more diverse because of the limits of travel.
Yeah.
Than some other kingdoms, which may be just the outsider's view of getting it. But I think the character of Drachenwald is we're diverse, we're different. Some of us have all of us have funny accents for the Americans, and we tend to have really nice garb, is the impression I get from the States.
We do, don't we?
the American kingdom's opinion of us. But then again, I think most of them only ever really see Drachenwald in force at Pennsic.
Yeah,
And, you know, actually, the people who go to Pennsic are the people who are doing it really seriously.
I do agree with you there. I think the Americans, the American kingdoms, mostly see us at when we go traveling over there for Pennsic or Estrella or Great Western War, and of course we bring our best garb. Of course we, you know, we are traveling over to a different kingdom. I mean, so they tend to see the absolute best of us. They don't see me running around in a towel.
Yes, yeah. So, no, and I think it is. Yeah, I've yet to get to an out of kingdom event, and I want to. I have a lot of friends over in Callantyre for various reasons, and I'd love to get out there if I can get there when the weather's nice. And the 4 weeks a year they allegedly get out there, the weather where they have good weather. But yeah, you get to see. I think with the people who travel overseas from any kingdom, you're always going to see the best of that kingdom because they're always going to bring out their best. And actually, there's a level of you get to a certain point before you start doing that.
Yeah, and also
certainly from Drachenwald.
Absolutely,
I suspect it depends where you live in American kingdoms.
Yeah, because you don't travel to Pennsic for your first event. Normally, I know some people that have done it, but normally you have played a couple of years and then maybe you go, and then maybe you have had time to get all the nice stuff.
Yeah, well, I did Raglan as my first SCA event, which is kind of our local equivalent.
Yep.
And Pennsic is just put on for all the people who can't get to Raglan Castle each year.
Ooh, the bird.
That's our theory, and we're sticking to it.
Well, I have to agree.
Yeah.
A little bit. I have been to Great Western War. I have never been to Pennsic or Estrella. I have been to Great Western War, and it is very different from how we do events. So I can absolutely recommend you to if you have the chance to go, do go.
Yes, I think there's a lot to be said for our events. I hear the weirdness of American events. They get so big, you can only get a certain portion of the event get to go to the feast if they have one, and that's weird.
Yeah, I mean, the standard in Drachenwald is you go to an event and you get feast.
Yes, yeah.
But then again, we have normally like various from 50 people to 110. The bigger camping events like Raglan, Double Wars, and Cudgel, and also Red and Gold is the name of it in Germany, I think.
Yeah.
I have never been there, so that's why I was struggling with the name. But I think those can have a couple of hundreds people.
Yes, yeah.
While at Great Western War they had 5,000. Yeah,
no, it's not. It just wouldn't. I wouldn't want to be a feast, be in charge of feast for that number of people.
No.
100 is about my limit.
And it's more for what my experience from Great Western War was that it was more every camp kind of had their own stuff. So
yes,
by having 20 Raglans at the same place.
Yes, yeah.
Everybody doing their thing. So it is different, but I can still really recommend that if you have the possibility, do go. It's an experience. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's an experience.
Yes, yeah, and one of the things that really ends up interesting me about the SCA is, for want of a better word, the sociology of the SCA and the difference. That each kingdom is a culture unto itself, and each has different ways of doing things. And different traditions, and how that's developing. There's a sort of scientific part of me that finds all of that sort of thing incredibly interesting. And it's weird because we are recreating something.
We are, but we are also recreating a vast period of time. I mean, we are doing from Roman to Renaissance.
we're almost creating something completely new, but there's little things like you're getting, most in Drachenwald, we're getting serious amounts of the second generation of Scadians is coming to age now.
Yeah.
And you're seeing people who've been for the last 10 years. I'm seeing people who I've been seeing about at events for the last 10 years. Getting to the point where I'm fighting them shortly.
Oh, you have to repeat that because the internet hacked.
So I'm seeing people who I've been seeing since they were little kids for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to the point where a couple of years, or even less in some cases, I'm going to get to be fighting them. And they've been sitting and watching the fighting, and in many cases, learning the fighting since they were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of hear stories of America where they've got more like 3 generations of it.
Yeah.
And you're seeing kids who are coming up, turning 18, being allowed to compete in tournaments and going out and becoming, having the skills to be king on their first day because they've been raised actually like kids would have been to the warrior classes in the Middle Ages, in that as soon as they could walk, a sword was put in their hands.
Yeah. I think that's cool.
And it's great. And it's saying that's how it works. That's how it worked then. And even done in our fairly light-hearted and entertaining manner, it produces incredibly skilled fighters. And it's interesting seeing that develop as a thing.
I totally agree. Looking at the time, though, we have to start rounding this up.
Yep.
And I have another interview in like half an hour.
Yep.
I swam two at the same day because it was like I'm in garb. I have fixed my hair.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
yes,
anyhow, rounding it up. Is there? We have talked a little bit about, well, basically everything.
Yep.
I have had a great time talking to you because I miss you so much.
Yeah. We haven't been at many
Yeah.
events together, but it is your
Yeah, we haven't had many events together, but those we had.
Yeah, I find a lot of people who instantly become family within the SCA.
Yeah.
I can't think of a better way to finish up any discussion of the SCA. I have this ginormous found family, and it's awesome.
A ginormous family. And I do hope, fingers crossed, that we soon will be able to have events again, and that I can come visit you in Insulae Draconis, because Insulae Draconis is a great place with great sites. Yes.
Yeah, the sites are wonderful. The Americans have the numbers, we have the sites. This is the truth of Drachenwald.
It's kind of like, we did printed t-shirts with the cocky message, Drachenwald, where your persona comes from.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. So thank you so much for this interview. I'm so glad that you agreed to do this.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Always happy to talk.
Me too.
Yep.
So hugs and kiss to you and Valda and
yep.
Janet. That's probably annoyed right now.
No, he's settled down on the sofa across the room for me.
I have annoyed kittens.
He's a fairly forgiving beast.